recently, both, in fact. Said Golden and Brooks Austin joined us 2 weeks ago. Brooks joined us 3 weeks ago tonight. This time we're inside. Said, of course, has covered Texas for a couple of years.
Maybe 2, 3. I'm still in the probationary period, Paul. Yeah. They may fire me after this.
Vince Young was by a minute ago. You probably remember him.
Oh, SEC legend Vince Young. I saw that. So, do you get all of his publishing rights?
There was a little controversy when Vince was named as a late. We had Ken Hamlin from Arkansas too. He actually played in the SEC, but who was the Oklahoma guy? I can't remember. He obviously didn't play in the SEC. Oh, Barry Switzer. Barry did play in the SEC. No, he didn't. He played at Arkansas before they got in the SEC.
He coached at Arkansas, too.
He did.
Coach Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson.
I want to hear stories about that one day. Brooks, good to see you. Let's talk about the game. We haven't really talked about the game very much. But you do such a great job in breaking things down, the analytics part. If you had to point toward one thing tomorrow that you've been observing, what is the most important thing?
I mean, in this football game, for these two football teams all year, it's been about line of scrimmage play. And most of the time when they win football games, they dominate the line of scrimmage. And I think that's what you saw happen back in October in the first matchup. Georgia's defensive line particularly really handled that Texas offensive line from a pass rush standpoint. Right. And I thought they did a really good job on early downs, limiting the run game. You look at the box score, it didn't necessarily look like Texas had any problems running the football in that football game. But I thought on first downs in particular, Georgia did a good job of limiting the efficiency of that Texas run game. And that's the key to stopping this Texas football team. They are a run the ball to open up the deep game play action passing attack. So you have got to do a good job at the line of scrimmage.
And Georgia's got a couple of key players on the offensive line that are, one in particular that wasn't, he may not have even played in that game.
He didn't. You're talking about Tate Ratledge. Yeah, obviously Tate Ratledge is starting, fifth-year senior offensive guard. He's been starting 4 years for the University of Georgia. Didn't play in that matchup against Texas. But the other key thing, Paul, is they have used Monroe Freeling, the redshirt freshman at left tackle, as opposed to Ernest Green over the last several weeks. Since that Ole Miss matchup, Ernest Green been banged up with a left shoulder injury. And I have felt that Monroe Freeling, a big 6'7", 330-pound, five-star offensive tackle, has done a tremendous job over the last several weeks and really elevated the performance of this offensive line.
Said, what the narrative's been all year, that somehow CDC, got a gift-wrapped Christmas schedule. He defended that, and obviously it's not that easy when you have to play Georgia twice.
I mean, if they win this game, they earned everything that came to them, regardless of who they played. And it's not their fault that Michigan wasn't Michigan from last year. Mm-hmm. It's not their fault that Arkansas didn't show up in Fayetteville or that the Aggies couldn't score a touchdown against them. In many other years, those are much tougher matchups for Texas. But I really think the defense kind of won the day this season, and they're leading the charge. And Sarkisian has realized that this is a defensive team first, and sometimes it's better that the offense just stay out of the way.
I had a chance to talk to you since Kyle Field experience the other night, and it's been a very quiet week on our show from Aggie fans. What's it been like? What was that experience like for you, who's been there before for games?
It's great. It was a great experience because anyone who hasn't gone to a college football game at College Station should go once. Yeah. It is the most nuts game day atmosphere of maybe anywhere. You've got no cheerleaders. You've got these big 6'5" guys in white waving towels and leading chants, and you've got a lot of extra stuff. And those guys were out for blood when Texas rolled in.
We've heard it for a while.
They were singing, they were chanting, they were swaying. They did everything but score. They forgot to play football. If they had played football,
it would have been a great night.
We'd still be talking about it.
It's been so interesting all year to watch. I did it to you again, Paul. It's been so interesting all year to watch what we think is an offensive-minded football program, right? Steve Sarkisian, this great offensive mind. They have really leaned on the defense. They did that last week. I felt like they squatted on the football because they knew Texas A&M ain't scoring the ball today against our defense.
There's no reason to gamble.
No.
The defense that played against Georgia played well.
Made them earn it.
Texas turned the ball over 3 or 4 times, and they had short fields that they had to defend, and If I told you before that game, Paul, that Texas was going to pick off Carson Beck 3 times and hold the Georgia Bulldogs to 283 yards of offense, we're thinking Texas blows out Georgia. They lost by 15.
So, Brooks, let me get to the QBs because, I mean, they're two of the best-known quarterbacks in the land. They got all the deals. They got all the pub. They both have had challenging times this year.
Yeah, I think both have to figure out which one of them is going to have a chance to be an elevator tomorrow. I think both of these quarterbacks have done a great job all year facilitating when guys are open, facilitating when people around them can be depended upon. But in this game tomorrow, one of these guys is going to have to play outside the system. One of these guys is going to have to take what's there and elevate it, right? Not just be a point guard, but be a difference maker in this football game. Which one of these quarterbacks can do that, I think ultimately decides the game tomorrow. Line of scrimmage play, turnovers, all that stuff. But which one of these quarterbacks is going to make the play and change this football game tomorrow?
I love what Brooks is putting down. He's dropping knowledge. And I wrote this earlier this week. It's going to come down to Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck and maybe Arch Manning.
Yeah.
Maybe Arch
Certainly
Manning.
The legs.
Because I'm telling you, he didn't put Arch Manning in there in the first quarter with 3 minutes to go for nothing against the Aggies. That is part of a bigger plan that Sarkisian is cooking up. I asked him about
what's he saving it for?
I asked him that yesterday. He goes, sometimes you got to keep some things up your sleeve. I go, why are you wearing sleeves in December? Everything should be out there. But I really think that Arch is going to play a bigger role than he did against A&M. And when you see them in short yardage and they bring Arch in, don't be surprised if Sarkisian throws it deep with him because that's what he does.
In terms of Ewers, I mean, his health has been a question all year.
He says he's healthy, and he's looked healthy, and he will nickel and dime you all day long. He can throw the intermediate stuff as good as anybody, but it's the vertical routes that's missing in this offense. And you saw Haynes King hit a couple of big passes against that Georgia defense, and that's something that Arch Manning does pretty well.
If I were Texas, if I were Kyle Flood, I would look at UMass and what they did with the quarterback design run game and certainly what Georgia Tech did last week. It wasn't just the 330 yards passing. They rushed for over 250 yards in that football game as well, almost all behind the fact of quarterback design run. We saw Kyle Flood use that a little bit in the red zone last week against Texas A&M. If I were that football team, if I were that offensive staff, I would attack what seems to be a weakness right now in that Georgia defense.
Great stuff. I could listen to this all day. And in fact, I might. I'm taking off here and leaving the rest of the show to these two. Brooks and Sid, always great to see you.
No doubt, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Good to see you, brother.
We'll take a short break. We're going to do something a little bit different in the next segment. You may remember this from, I don't know, about 6 weeks ago in Oxford. We're going to resurrect one of my favorite segments and one of my favorite guests of all time on this program. I'll keep you in suspense for just a moment.